You have two eyes, huh? Do you understand the game a bit? Yeah, have a look.
I'm not saying anything to you in particular because I know you're not too accurate with your reporting.
That's what you paid
so you're
for.
Saying I should resign. So you're saying I should resign.
I think
that's
you should,
your opinion. Is that right?
That's my
okay,
opinion.
Fine.
Are you going to resign then?
No, of course I'm not going to resign.
I simplify things next time.
Buenos noches, señores y señoras. Buenas noches, Joey.
Hola.
Buenas noches, Ante.
Buenas noches a todos. Estamos listos.
Buenas noches, Nick Dabano.
Buenas noches, ragazzi.
Oh, your microphone is horrific. Nick, we've seen some terrible things happen in world football in the past 24 hours. Fans get pepper sprayed, but nothing has offended me as much as your microphone. We might give you a minute to sort it out. Already the comments are coming in. Alan Riley says, "Oh Christ, Nick is hosting." That's some early criticism. A minute 13 into the show. I've got to be honest with you. We do appreciate your feedback, though. We did have some feedback actually come in this week, and we appreciate, if you can comment, send in your comments. We'd love to see it. But we just had some feedback about, how we do the pod, and here it is.
By all means, enjoy it, but enjoy it by being fucking disciplined here.
So we just need to be a bit more disciplined this week. We're going to keep it to 60 minutes, and we're going to try not interrupt each other. Joey.
Have you seen that he's joined Twitter?
He has joined Twitter, which is why I remembered it, and that's why I love that clip. But we're going to talk, obviously, about everything that's happening. So much coming up. Obviously, going to talk about the A-League Grand Final, A-League All-Stars, Socceroos squad, Soccer Twitter toxicity, your questions. Everything's going on, and if we have time, I secured a exclusive interview, world exclusive with Lionel Messi. So we'll see. We might have to drop it, if a lot goes on, but that's one to stick around for. So anyway, gentlemen, let's start with the game that you were all at last night down at Amy Park. Melbourne City 0. The dynasty of Melbourne City is over. What a dynasty it was. I think we had a comment come in via Twitter asking us to discuss the dynasty. But Western United have started their own dynasty. They haven't started building their stadium, but they've started their dynasty, which is incredible. Joey, you were there last night. Let's heap some praise onto Western United.
Well, I'm going to do a bit of a haulback. Remember earlier in the season when I floated my idea of the good bloke index and the nice guys finish first theory? Well. It's not just for fetching water. John Aloisi, Tomoki Imai, Ryan Scott, Lockie Wales, the good blokes are triumphant in the A-Liga men's competition. No, it was a fun. It was fun to see in the aftermath. Just obviously, grand final. You could see how much it meant to the Western United players, the Western United staff, everybody involved in the club. It was just absolutely huge for them. We'll get to the game in a little bit and break down the actual X's and O's, but from a broader perspective, monumental, I think, in A-Liga men's history. I mean, Western United, it takes them just 3 years to win the championship. Previous record holder for an expansion side was Melbourne City, who took 11 years and, as I wrote, a City Football Group takeover to reach the mark. So somewhat of an unprecedented victory on Western United's behalf as well, and really one that, it sort of raises just what happens now. I mean, it's the questions that have dogged this club for years now just get a championship added to the mix as well. The club with no home now has a title and no place to hang it. And, can this give them momentum going forward to build a new identity? Can it supercharge their active support? Can it help them rejuvenate their side and bring in new followers? There's really a whole bunch of questions that arise from it. But really, I mean, I'll let you get to the others in a sec, but, like I said, great event for John Aloisi to go from, being actively rooted against whenever his name was raised in circulation for jobs, to go to winning a championship in his first season at Western United. Clearly could see what it meant to him. He's made a lot of sacrifices this year. His family has remained in Brisbane throughout the entire season. His wife and daughters have remained in Brisbane. He hasn't had a chance to see them throughout the entire campaign, except rare opportunities, rare visits and, FaceTime apps and all that. So great result for him. Great result for Tomoki Amai. I have to give him a shout out again, man. Like, he's sitting there before the game. He's belting out the national anthem before the game. He's hugging blokes in tears after the game. He's hugging his kids in tears. His kids that learn English alongside him, watching Bluey and Paw Patrol, man. Like, there were some heartwarming scenes at the end of that game. It's weird. Like, Western United, I was discussing this off air with Western United. Western United as an entire entity can feel a little fake and a little invented, but the people there are very real. And it was a big thing for them.
Yeah, and I'd just say on that, like, look, we've all worked for shitty companies over the years. Sometimes senior management hasn't got their shit together, but at the end of the day, you do your best, you try your hardest, you try to do your little spot as well as you can. And in the end, I feel like that's what the players and coaching staff of Western United did, and they end up being champions. Ante, your take on Western United being champions of the A-League 2022?
Hello, everyone. It's very weird because John Aloisi's return has exhibited a real togetherness with that squad, and you can't help but feel happy for them as individuals and them as a squad, because they have fought for each other immensely. But I asked him about whether he'll improve in certain aspects in very early stages of the season, but the reality is he didn't have to, because that was, to be frank, that was a grossly mismanaged game from Patrick Kaznorbo last night. I remember saying in the press box, as soon as I saw Griffiths was selected, that Western were going to win this game and win it rather comfortably. And as it happened, they were very, very comfortable in that first half. Melbourne City didn't even put up a shot. It took until about 70 minutes into the match where Jamie McLaren was no longer the only starter on the pitch with less than 10 touches. He just saw none of the ball because Melbourne City were just so disjointed. And there was actually a good comment today from someone who was responding to something about PK's presser last night. It was like, the more he stamps his authority on this team, the less functional they become, or it's pretty true. And last night was a very clear example of that. I will say, though, with respect to Western, there has been people have to be wary of drinking the Kool-Aid and getting lost in the euphoria of the occasion, because what legitimizes them is not, a bump in crowds. What legitimizes them as a football club is actually being a football club and having a bottom-up structure that, reflects that. Because that was a question I had last night watching the game. It was like, they had the highest payroll in the league, but dished that up. And next season, I guess the question is, like, how sustainable is that? Because next season they're going to be a marked team, and they're not really going to be able to sit in a block for 60 to 70 minutes of a game. Not to mention, bring all the old boys back. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens next season and whether Aloisi can actually adjust to that.
Debano, you were at the game last night. You've got a blue tick now on Twitter, so your takes come extra verified. Let's see if it's improved your internet needs to know. Thoughts on Western United being champions?
Is that better? I think it was just my microphone. Coming through all right?
It's better. It's better.
You sound like you have laryngitis.
Yeah,
Mate,
you sound like you were commentating the first 8 minutes of the Champions League final.
Well, just as a preface, hello everybody. It's been a busy 24 hours, so excuse the voice between actually, having the opportunity to come in as the medical sub to host Western United's championship celebration today, and then also going to the footy as well. Collingwood playing Carlton up the pies, and that getting quite intense. The voice is gone. To sum up the game, look, you know what? I'll leave you guys maybe to go into the X and O's just for now, but I want to speak a little bit about, I guess, just the Western United journey. I mean, it is pretty incredible to see where they were from last year, getting it done last night, because what I felt was throughout this final series as well was they were riding a bit of a perfect storm. They beat Wellington. That's the first monkey off the back. That's something that, they hadn't done since the first game of their, in their existence as a football club. And then, they came from behind. They beat Melbourne Victory. And to be honest, for me personally, and, speaking to other people who were there and other people with predictions, a lot of people were starting to, like, as much as, John Aloisi was talking about the odds, a lot of the experts were actually going for Western United. A lot of people were actually saying they thought Western United was going to win that game. And I honestly felt that Western United was going to come away with the points. Hello, Run the Memes. Yes, I am the doppelganger of said City striker, as Robert Cornthwaite got confused with earlier. So, yeah, I mean, it was quite like, why aren't people seeing this from the outside? Are people on Sportsbet and TAB looking at this and thinking, oh, City finished first, they're going to run all over Western United. They're the reigning champions, blah, blah, blah. Everyone just loaded the money on them or whatever the odds makers were doing. But I always felt that Western United were going to win this game, and that only got exacerbated when they scored inside the first 10 minutes, because we knew what was going to happen then. We knew what was going to happen. Get to you in a second, but we'll get, like, the big thing was we knew exactly what was going to happen, because we've seen this script over and over and over again. We've seen, Western United win games 1-0. How many times? 8 or 9 times this year. It was something like that in the end. They know how to defend the lead better than anybody else. Probably, I would say, alongside Melbourne Victory, in terms of being able to just sit back, put numbers behind the ball, low block, hit on the break. And that's what they did really well yesterday. And then as well, having a guy like Alexander Prijovic up top, I mean, talking about guys who can just rise to the big occasion, big game player. I mean, he got himself in the right area to put that bit of pressure on that the ball obviously felt an iteration, deflected in, and then he ended up scoring the second goal. So in the end, obviously, when I look at this, Joey, you mentioned about the good bloke index and about, good people being at Western United. I mean, this is something at Western United that, for all the flack they cop, and again, people might look at this and say, oh, you were hosting the Western United event. Of course, you're going to speak glowingly of, the people involved at the club. But there are a lot of good people involved in this club in all different facets, because there are some people who have had to come in and clean up a lot of crap that was left over after the first season, and people who had to come in and clean up a lot of crap after the second season. And this goes from communications to marketing to everything else. This club's trying. I mean, they're trying. They put everyone up for media this week. They had a big day and they got everyone down and everyone had an opportunity to speak to players. They had a big event today, with their fans down at Graceland. Great partnership with them out in the west of Melbourne. Their media team works really well together. Good strategy, everything else. At least they're trying. They're trying to get fans in. We talk about MacArthur being the other Foxtel FC, expansion team. They've got those ridiculous prices for fans to come in. At least Western United are at least trying to get people in. They're not. It's obviously wasn't working throughout the season, but at least they're trying. And I get this. I hope that going into next season, we see, a bit more of a groundswell of support come their way. But obviously, I'm quite skeptical, because we saw it with City this year. Winning the championship didn't necessarily translate into bigger crowds, bigger turnouts. But hopefully, it might be able to turn some people who might be on the fence, towards actually supporting Western United. Because, to be honest, it's good for the game if Western United are doing well. Again, I know that's a more of a positive spin on it. But if, you've got these teams doing well, it's important for this game. And I think next season, Ante, you mentioned it, target on the back. Let's see how they respond. Let's see who gets retained next season, because they have a lot of players coming out of contract. They have a lot of older players coming out of contract as well. And I'd be curious to see how many they keep and what role they're going to have in the team as well. Because there's also a bunch of kids in that team, in that NPL 3 team, that are coming through. Not to mention they're third at the moment in that league and actually doing some good things. And once that academy comes through as well, they've got something building there.
Joey, you wanted to make a point on legitimizing the club, Western United. Do you want to unmute yourself before you make that point?
We try to professionalise. We try to stay mute. We take on feedback from Mario in Doncaster that we're talking over each other, and then what happens? I'm not going to swear because we're professional and we're on Walt Disney now. But I just wanted to pick up the ball that Ante was talking about. That yes, it was something that I, often thought about. In writing all of these previews that you do in Grand Final week, and all of these sort of stories. How do you balance the accomplishments of Western United and what they are, achieving on the field? And at the end of the day, the goal of the A-League men's is to win the A-League Men Championship, and that's what they've done. So that is inevitably a factor. But you also do have to weigh that up with the unfulfilled promises and everything else that needs to happen off the pitch to ensure that they don't just simply disappear and fall by the wayside. I mean, they didn't win a championship, but Gold Coast United weren't the worst side in the world during their time in the A-League men's, but it didn't stop them from disappearing. I think I agree with what Ante says. The establishment of that academy is going to be incredibly important. I think with his late substitution, Adisu Bayu is now the first Western United academy graduate to win silverware for the club. The goal should be for him to just be the first of many. To add on to what Ante said, there's a women's team coming in now. It's not just a men's club now, it's a women's club now, and you need to invest in that side of the club, just as much as and pay just as much love and care as you do the men's side. If you want to back up all of these promises you've been making about a club for the boys and girls of the West and yada yada yada. I mean, in theory, they're going to go well on that front because they've pretty much just taken on Calder United's NPLW pathway as their own. So effectively, they have almost straight out of the gate a better pipeline to their first team than Victory and City do, just by virtue of that partnership. And I think it does also come back to what Nick DeBarno was talking about, because I think that is a factor in legitimizing a club. It is the academy and the women's team, it is a factor, but it's also community outreach. It's also ingratiating yourself amongst the people that you want to connect with and you want to forge an emotional bond with. That's school visits, that's shopping center visits, that's clinics, that's sending out free tickets. Yes, it's not the worst thing in the world to send out free tickets to junior clubs and all of that sort of stuff. It's about becoming not just on top of the community, but part of the community. And that's work that has to continue. It should be, I'm seeing a lot of comments surrounding like the name, and I agree, the name isn't good. But that just makes incorporating yourself.
Any alternatives?
Wyndham United. Wouldn't even have to change the logo. Wyndham, you wouldn't even have to change the logo. But if you are going to keep the name, that makes it even more important to get in there to the community. So some kid that, loves his footy, goes, plays for the local footy club and grows up wanting to play for the Western Bulldogs. When he hears Western United, he knows that that's the club for, he or she knows the club, that's the club for them. And then
Can I just ask as an outsider, why doesn't Western Melbourne work?
Why do have to ask the people behind it?
To be honest, why do people even care about it? Like,
it's a name. It is one of the most important things involved in an identity.
Look, a rose by any other name could smell as sweet. Like, to be honest, like these are all clubs that stand for what exactly?
Well, that's the point. What does vague direction?
What, a name? Sorry, like a name doesn't necessarily change what a club is supposed to represent. And that's why I'm not trying to claim that it's the only thing they need to do. I'm saying it's part of a rich tapestry of things that they need to do. And just finally, I'll address the elephant in the room, the stadium. They have to build a damn thing. Like, it's not like
It's why they entered this league. It's why their bid was selected over others. It's the entire thing. There will be a layer of trust and acceptance and goodwill that can never be recovered if that stadium isn't built. And that also goes for this new training facility that they're building out in the West with. Initially was a 5,000 seat capacity. Chris Palavanis today, their CEO, tells us today at their event, they're looking at upgrading that capacity to 7,000 or 8,000 people. That training facility cannot just slowly turn into the stadium. That's not what was promised. That's not what was promised.
Look, that's some very good summation there from you, Joey, and it kind of answers Antonis Pagonis' question via Twitter. How can Western United maximize the benefit of winning the league next year when they're still playing away from their heartland? Unreal achievement, but will be kicking themselves about the lack of a stadium. I just want to get through a few more questions and comments. The Homer Legend says, no Josh Parrish, sad face. Yes, unfortunately, Josh isn't here. See, because now we've joined ESPN, both he and Stephen A, they're on similar salaries. They bring similar energies. And so, we're just having to negotiate with Stephen A because he doesn't really want a threat on the network like Josh. But Alan Riley makes a good point. Shocking lack of ticker from Josh here. Expected better. Josh will be back.
Get well, Josh.
Next week, yes. Stephen Paletti asks Joey, where did Joey get that Razor Ramon top? I don't even know. I'm assuming it's some kind of wrestler. Joey, answer that quickly.
Hey, Chico, Razor Ramon, Amazon.
Great. No plugs for them. They're a massive corporation, possibly. The Homer Legend. If this goes for 60 minutes, I'll go for a nudie run down the street. Run the memes. In the words of a Catholic priest, where's the young boy? Ooh, there we go. Look, we'll get on back to Western United. Luke Chill writes Tomoki supremacy. What did you guys think? Let's talk about the actual match. Let's get onto the field and da. Who were, let's start at least with Western United. All right. So they go up basically first minute, own goal, Prijovic header. They sit back, they absorb pressure, get a lucky deflection. Prijovic scores. They barely have another chance after that. They defend for their life. But who was the standout players for you? Is there anyone that you want to give praise to for the game last night? Ante, you look the least enthused, so I might come to you later. Devano, anyone you want to give praise to?
Well, I mentioned Alexander Prijovic, but I think the credit also has to go to the other end of the pitch. I mean, Leo and Tomoki, I thought were fantastic. The two of them, that partnership, I think, is probably the best centre-back partnership in the league. I think it's a shame we didn't see enough of them two starting together as the main pillars in the heart of defense towards the tail end of the season when Josh Risden got hurt, because Tomoki would move across to right back as a makeshift fullback, and we'd see Nikolai Topper-Stanley come in. I think Leo and Tomoki deserve a lot of credit, but also I think, to be honest, when you look at this as a whole, it was a whole team effort. It's hard to just, pinpoint a few players that kind of stood out. I thought Connor Payne was great. And I thought he did some good things getting into Carl Jenkinson's head, mainly. I think most of the stuff he was doing was actually just in terms of the mental battle, not necessarily the one-on-one battle. But for me, I thought whole team, they all did their role brilliantly. And at the end of the day, they came up trumps. And just one more, shout out to Josh Risden. Got hurt in the 10th minute, looked completely cooked with a hip injury, but managed to play on, got some painkillers in him and saw out the game. Because if he went down, they would have been forced to either, play Dylan Piraeus at right back or potentially play Ben Collins. And Ben Collins, who was actually warming up, has only played 75 minutes of senior football all season. So imagine, as much as I think there are high raps around Ben Collins and I'd like to see more of him, it would have been interesting seeing him thrown in a pressure cooker situation like that.
Speaking of legitimizing the club, it's... Connor Payne has been significantly unheralded with respect to how Western United function, both defensively and in an attacking sense. In transition, he's just able to find little pockets and positions of space. Obviously, this is Western United in transition, and it's a very different dynamic. But he allows them to spring in transition. I agree on Risden. I also agree on Lacroix, but we spoke about this very early in the season, and how much of this was column A, how much of this was column B, and like, I guess that's the ultimate context that Western United's title run lies within, because it wasn't just this game. It was, the 2 legs against Victory. It was the game against Wellington, where there was significant portions of the match where they weren't made to work for their result at all. And like I said, they do defend stoutly. But there were a lot of instances last night where Lustiца and Kilkenny could have been pulled out of shape but weren't. And then that creates certain reliances on players like Lacroix defending in space. And Western, column A, column B.
Joey, you used the phrase tapestry previously, and people have picked up on it. There was tapestry, there was Rich Tapestry United. Ivan Stragan via YouTube says sounds more like tapestry. So that's always good. Love people making fun of your accent. It's funny, it's like the only accent where it's like, so funny. Make fun of that accent all you want. Joey, standout performers for Western United for you before we move on to kind of look at Melbourne City and what they didn't do?
Well, I think they have been mostly covered. There was also Jamie Young, who was forced into a few sharp saves late, albeit, it was the final 10 minutes of the game. But, at this point, that's sort of what we expect from Jamie Young in these moments. It was just building upon what the other lads have said. Just Western United did what they needed to do to win the football match.
Well, actually, can I just ask you guys, and I'd be interested to hear from all three of you, because you're down in Melbourne and you have a bit more of an inside word than, say people up here in the Shadow Realm do. But we had a question come in, because you're talking about, how good they are defensively and well organised. And Alan Riley asks, how much of an impact has Hayden Fox had at Western United, and how good is he as an assistant?
Huge.
Seems an awful coincidence that Western Sydney Wanderers and Perth have gone downhill since he left, and his track record speaks for itself, bar Melbourne Heart, obviously. So, I don't know. Like, you guys would know better than me. But Joey, if you want to start first, then Ante, then Nick.
Hayden Fox has had a significant impact on that defensive structure this year. I imagine, it's not a coincidence. I don't think that some of the struggles at Western Sydney Wanderers and Perth Glory in the aftermath of his departure, just as much as obviously there's the gigantic chasm that Tony Popovich leaves whenever he abruptly departs a club. But I think he's been a very important figure for them this season. You talk to the players and they agree that he's been a very important figure in what they do. I think that coaching staff sort of complements each other quite well. Hayden Fox, obviously the stout thing. I think Johnny Anastasiadis is there, one of the holdovers from the previous regime. He's an excellent man motivator, I think, from what I've been told. Like, he sort of gets in there and he understands the players and he's able to support them. But Hayden Fox, huge impact.
Ante?
I think he'd be, if Hayden Fox wanted to become a head coach, I think he'd be able to find somewhere.
Ante?
Huge impact in terms of defensive approach. However much we do have to bring into context the low functionality of teams in possession, like Western. There's nothing to like. That's not funny. That's just fact. That's just how the league is played. Because you look at every team in the final series have pretty much played 4-4-2 block this season, and in terms of the defensive side of the ball, Hayden Fox has been very, very important. In terms of details for some players, specifically Lacroix and Topo Stanley and Tomoki Umai, those who have played at centre back, he's been pretty important in that respect. But I'm just very intrigued to see what now.
It is interesting when you talk about like Hayden Fox, and like we're saying, he's done a great job. Praise him a lot. Paul Turner has written in, Hayden Fox as a head coach will mean more uninspiring football. If you told me tomorrow that Hayden Fox was taking over my club, I wouldn't be excited. I'd be like, all right, we're going to be defensively solid. And look, Western United are celebrating a championship. But just based on the teams that Hayden Fox has been a part of, they don't feel me. As Dara Simeone once said, I don't feel it. Like
I don't feel you, bro.
I don't feel
It
it.
doesn't move me, bro.
But like, would you feel the premierships that he have accompanied him at Western Sydney and Perth Glory, and the championship at Western United?
I'm a Barca fan, and I've just watched Real Madrid win about 5 Champions Leagues in a row, where they've just shit out their ways to a bunch of victories. Yeah, I want to win. All right,
but
so
like, what?
right.
Like, but that's the same argument that people that Sydney FC fan used to say Graham Arnold was such a great coach, and look where that's got us for the national team. Like this comes back to the very idea that we raised earlier in the season, that there is such a warped idea of what constitutes success in this league because we have a final series.
Debano, you want to add anything?
Oh, what's that big vibration someone go through? What was that? It's like, did someone just literally drop a stink bomb on the mic there? Like, that was a wobble. I want to pose a question to you guys, because this is a question that goes not just in football but beyond all sport. Are some coaches better suited to being a really good assistant coach? And that is just for them. That's some that they just don't. It doesn't translate with them being a good head coach. And maybe that's it for Hayden. Like, that's Hayden Fox's role. Maybe he is a better assistant coach than what he is as potentially a head coach. I mean, I think about one really good example. Mauro Tassotti, who was the assistant coach under Carlo Ancelotti at Milan and also under Max Allegri at Milan. He was also the assistant coach under Shevchenko for the Ukraine. Fantastic assistant coach, one of the best assistant coaches. And everyone said it's time for him to get a head coaching job. It just wasn't for him. He was always an assistant, and it worked for him. It worked for him to be the right-hand man. I just wonder, maybe that's the calling for Hayden Fox.
Mate, he hasn't even had a head coaching job, mate. Like, we don't even know. We don't know. Like, until it actually happens, we can't like.
Well, to give Rado Vidicic was one that he was under Ange for a while at Brisbane, and everyone's like, "Oh, give Rado a go." Rado was so good at Brisbane; they play such good football, and then took over and and that was pretty much the end of his, time as a head coach in the A-League Men's. Look, just quickly, I just wanted to say about John Aloisi. You talked about the nice guy index, Joey, at the start, and just look, 10 months ago, I was working with John Aloisi at Optus, and it felt like a long way away from being an A-League coach and winning an A-League championship. And, it is incredible just to think that, he was at the same stadium that he had that terrible time with Melbourne Heart, where Bozza was asking him on air, like, surely you've got to resign, mate. Like, what? This is embarrassing, right? So it's incredible from him. And you talk to kind of all the players that have played under him. They seem to really, really respond to him. Players at Brisbane Roar really spoke very highly of him, and he had to deal with the Backries as owners and kind of the disasters there. So, I actually was very happy for John Aloisi. He's always been a super nice guy whenever I've worked with him at Optus and at SBS before that. Joey?
I'll just say, today at Graysland, Lockie Wales running around broke down in tears on a Western United employee's shoulder, crying about how much he loved everybody at the club. Now, he was hungover and smashed as hell, but I have to assume that there's some level of genuineness in that.
Debano?
I just think as well, maybe the big thing as well for John Aloisi is I just think he's a sensational man manager. I think that's one thing to remember as well. I think we talk about X's and O's, but man management is so goddamn freaking important because we've seen it around the world. I mean, sorry to again bring it back to Milan, but Stefano Pioli is heralded as one of the great man managers in world football right now. And the players, again, speak so glowingly of him as being someone who has great relationships with everyone. It works. Good man management works.
Ancelotti's
as well.
The example.
Yeah,
and Ancelotti is
it works.
the best friend of all the players. He's Tony Cruz. What should we do? Oh, yeah, okay, all right, we'll do that. Man, Ancelotti raises an eyebrow, and everyone's just like, man, this guy's a don.
Let me just state for the record. Speaking of Carlo Ancelotti, ¿Dónde está CR7? ¿Dónde está, mate?
It's a good point. It's a very, very good point.
Thank you very much.
If we're naming good man managers, can I say Gareth Southgate now? Or...
He actually is a good boy.
He's a fantastic man manager. He's like perfect for the English job because that's his number one thing.
You know who else is a great man manager? Roberto Mancini is also a great man manager, Joey.
How's he going to manage people not at the World Cup, mate?
All right, look, we're going to talk about the actual game on the field, and let's talk about Melbourne City. Alan Riley says via YouTube, "How long until Ante drops? Wow, what a game, guys!"
Let me go one better. Wow,
go on.
what a season, guys! What a season! That was, you know what? That as a game, game, that game was the perfect punctuation mark for this season. With Western United, I remember saying before we started the podcast, it was 26 passes per defensive action from Western United in the first half, and Melbourne City had one shot in open play, and it was after a deflection at the top of the box from Connor Metcalf that trickles out wide. Like, it was horrendous as a game. And this is Prijovic, okay, he made a valid point in the presser last night saying that, all finals are kind of cagey, but this is the league. This is not just one game. Like, this is how the football is played in this league.
Well, okay, so just last night.
I thought Joey was going to say something.
Oh, sorry, I'll get to you in a minute, Joe. But Melbourne City, first half, 67% possession, 0 shots.
They were horrendous.
Like that, but that is like for the team that's just won the league, in the regular season, the defending champions, the dynasty, as J Mac was calling them last week, like 0 chances with and this at the start of the season, everyone was heralding the front three of Zante called them ASS, but
not everyone.
McLaren, Naboo, and Lecky, and they're a transition forward line. And after the first minute, the Western United went up 1-0. There was no more transitioning happening, and they had no idea what to do. They were running around like, I don't know what, like literally the Russell Westbrook meme. I'm just running around. I don't know what
just running around.
Yeah, I'm just running around out here. Like, they were just doing a cardio exercise. Like, it was horrendous, their runs, right? But just one other point. Then it becomes, Berenguer didn't have a good game, in my opinion. He's the usually creative outlet. But it was basically, once Berenguer wasn't having the best game, it basically just became get the ball wide and hopefully you get some crosses in. Some of the crosses as well were horrific. So it was one of the worst attacking performances I've seen in a grand final by a team that was meant to be favourites. Go, Joey.
Okay, I'm going to pick up what you said about Florent Berenguer. And yes,
he
didn't have the good game, but you have to ask why.
Injured. Yeah.
No. Why? It's what were the spaces he was operating in? How were Melbourne City getting the ball to Florent Berenguer? And I'm going to let Ante tee off on this in a little bit because he picked it up within about 2 minutes of the game actually starting. But I've spoken to people from both sides of the equation in the aftermath of that game, and both noted the absolute chasm that existed in City's midfield, the absolute wastelands that existed in City's midfield, that basically meant that Berenguer was on an island and was basically just long balls into him, do something with that, Florent. It basically took away everything that made Florent Berenguer a Johnny Warren medalist contender this season. And I'll let Ante tell you, because I know you'll talk about PK's presser as well. I'll let Ante tee off about why.
Yeah, but incorporate PK's presser into that, because you guys are all in there, and I want to hear how he justified, especially that first half, and then also the discussion of Tilio.
Justified. He didn't even like address it.
Yeah, he didn't justify it.
I asked him about McLaren not seeing the ball and how Griffiths was related to that, because they weren't necessarily collapsing areas of space. They're not making the midfielders turn from Western United. So as a consequence of that, McLaren, if he actually did want to see the ball to feet for once, or Berenguer, they're working effectively in isolation. And then in those passes, because you have Griffiths who one, doesn't want the ball to feet, two, can't cover ground enough to play in a single pivot, essentially. You're forcing Metcalf deeper. There are a lot of instances, and this was very apparent early in the piece, McLaren is having, oh, not McLaren, Metcalf is having to drop very, very deep. As a consequence of that, Berenguer is playing as a conventional 10. Another consequence of that, because of how Melbourne City play, it is so predicated on connection, short distances between players, third man movement. After the ball into the opposition half, they're isolated, completely disconnected. The next pass collapses. Western United win the ball. They can't keep the ball, so it just becomes parity from a standpoint of complexion. But Western United already had the goal. But what PK said in relation to that at the presser was I've heard some doozies in my time asking Australian coaches, tactical questions during pressers, but he ultimately said there was no connection between Griffiths playing and McLaren not seeing any of the ball.
Did he elaborate?
And I was trying to rationalize this, after the presser. It's like this is a coach who is overtly lying to protect his player, or he actually can't see the connection there. And this is the coach of the most heavily resourced club in the country. Like that is
not only that
is an embarrassment.
There's talk of, is he the next one to take over the Socceroos?
Oh, I know, right? This is a guy who I'm not going to go on with that one, but even if he was protecting his player, thinking back in retrospect, how about you just put him in a position that he can play in? Because Roster Griffiths can't play in midfield anymore in the A-League in the year of our Lord 2022. Playing him over Gomulka, there was no logic behind it whatsoever. And
did he explain why Gomulka?
Yeah, so I asked about that. Like, what was the rationale behind starting Griffiths ahead of Gomulka? And he goes, just that experience. And it's like, experience doing what exactly? That game or that selection conditioned the game completely. And Western United capitalized upon that complexion and conditioning of the game, but Cosnormo handed Aloisi that game on a platter.
Joey, I'm going to come to you in 1 second, but I just wanted to quickly get Alan Riley. That's as bad as Viet saying the reason he plays George Blackwood as a 10 is so Adelaide keeps the ball more. We've had some doozies this year in the A-League. Joey, go on.
To pick up what Ante was saying about Western taking advantage of it, speaking to some people involved in Western United today, they predicted that Roston Griffiths would be starting, observing the last game against Adelaide and the conversations that were taking place between Tyrus and Roston. And somebody else involved told me that the second they saw City lining up that way, and even in the first minute, even before they got the goal, they felt very, very confident that the game was going to go the exact way that they wanted it to.
In the bag.
And I think I think yesterday probably very much demonstrated the value of Aidan O'Neill to that squad.
Not in that complexion.
I think just the fact that he would have. I think Metcalf is a bit freer if it's O'Neill there instead of Griffiths.
But they need to chase the game. Like personally, I'm
discounting the opening goal. It's like start again, 0-0 from the start of the 90 minutes. O'Neill starting next to Metcalf and Bernier in that midfield. That's a much different game. Yeah. It's a much different complexion. Western United aren't as confident as what they were. That's what I'm trying to.
That's fair. Like, and I guess O'Neill is a big absence, but that's a relative discussion because O'Neill is valued as highly as he is by Cosnorbo and Melbourne City because he just runs all day and tackles. Like,
in that system,
he's a meat and two veg. Like,
now we're getting back to the philosophical, points about what is a good system versus what is a system that is Aidan O'Neill a good player? Or is he just a good player? That's a philosophical question, which I think we're approaching from sort of different angles in our interpretation of this conversation. But
let me get back to a direct question.
fair.
Debano, what was said by PK in the press conference in regards to Tilio not starting? A lot of chat, especially by me on social media, that he spent more time in the music video to start the season than on the pitch. Look, I thought when he came on, he did all right, even though, he's kind of, it even seems the way he uses him is such a strange way, even when he is on the pitch. But what was the rationale for not starting Tilio and then utilizing him in the way he did?
You know what he said? Like, do you genuinely want the paraphrase? Like,
Yeah.
He said, I went with my gut.
Well, man, what is this? Like the
Hierarchy
dad?
rules. Hierarchy rules.
Is Kisnova the dad of the under 10s or something?
Where's the oranges at halftime as well? And, the Macca's vouchers after the $10 Macca's vouchers after the game and the free Powerade. Sorry, Nick.
No, I was just going to say, do we think that these answers, which are terrible, are they because he's is he actually deciding grand final lineups based on his gut and the nerve endings that run to his stomach, or is he just hiding his real thoughts from the media?
No, can I just say, it doesn't matter what he actually thinks. If he's saying it in the press conference, we've just got to take, if he's saying in the press conference that it's his gut, we'll take him at his word. It was a gut decision. Doesn't matter if he wanted to obfuscate his real thinking process. That's how these press conferences work. Like, if you don't want to reveal something, come up with something better. Like, that goes for every coach. Like, it's not just something exclusively related to the Melbourne City, Patrick Kisnova, but every single coach will, not want to say something, so they'll come up with something else. If you don't want to say something, don't come up with something that makes you look worse.
Yeah, he exposed his L's on the TL, man.
Like, you just, like, if you are on the record, that is what will be run. If you say, I wanted to start George Blackwood as a 10 because I wanted more of the ball, or I went with my gut, that is what goes on the record. That is how history will judge you. It doesn't matter. Like, we're not going to put footnotes in the stories. Well, he said this, but what we actually think was he was thinking this, but he just didn't want to say it in the press conference. No!
Nah.
Say what you mean.
I'm not buying that.
What? You're not buying what?
That. Like, because... Look, from a standpoint of coaches, like, giving information to the media in that respect is antithetical to their job.
No,
so they're always going to lie in that respect.
No, what
so
I'm
you
saying
do
is,
have to take that into...
Yeah, I'm saying lie better.
But you still have to take that lie into context. Like, like, by definition, that they're not going to tell you the truth.
Exactly. So tell me a better lie.
What? So you can be fooled?
No, just one that doesn't make you look like an idiot. Oh, yes. Fool me.
Run the meme says PK about to bench press the entire TNC crew. Debana, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, he didn't. Look, honestly, I might just be tired and just forgotten if he actually, to answer your initial question, if he said why he utilized him in like on the left-hand side, because I think the one thing which was quite interesting is that when he brought Tilio on, he went back to the well with Lecky playing centrally. And that was another really interesting move, because you would have thought if you're going to bring Tilio on, you bring him on centrally and try to get some penetration through the middle of the park. But it was like, okay, we're going to keep going with the Joey mentioned it. U-shaped possession, inshallah into the box. Hope that Jamie McLaren can get on the end of it. Hope we can create some chaos. There was none of that. And, I honestly do feel for Marco Tilio, because he puts in these amazing performances, these match-winning performances off the bench like he did in the second leg, coming on and actually really helping change the complexion of the game. But then he's benched. I mean, I thought Florent Berenguer as well has been playing definitely. We mentioned in terms of utilization, but definitely he's playing hampered. If they wanted to play one of Berenguer or Tilio from the start, wouldn't it have been potentially better to start Tilio and bring Berenguer on if Berenguer was not up for starting the game and playing a full 90 minutes? He did go play the full 90 minutes, but he just looked like he was a yard off. So, mate, I don't know. That's just, if I was a coach, if I was someone, the way I see it in terms of logic, you start the guys who are 110% fit for a grand final. You're going with that. And I think that was a big L from PK in the end. And Joey, you summed it up perfectly. I mean, end of the day, coaches need to be more open about this. If they don't want to be open about it, then be better with your lies, man. Because at the end of the day, we're going to come back and we're going to write about it. Yes, we're going to write about it. And these stuff also can be facts. So if it's a fact or a stat, it doesn't matter who wrote it. It exists. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of questions, a lot of soul searching and questions to be had in the off season for City. But it's just a matter of whether things will actually change next season. Like, are things actually going to change? That's the question I pose to you guys. Obviously, we know Kolakovsky's on the way out. We know that Metcalf's on the way out. We know Tilio is potentially on the way out. What is going to happen next season? Foreign recruitment. The Manuel Pucciarelli situation is an absolute travesty, absolute joke. You're the
only one who remembers him.
You're the only one.
Joey, you had your moment, your little rant. I'm just saying this straight up. That bloke got brought over here on a 2-year deal. It wasn't a 1-year deal. It was a 2-year deal to come here and be the Adrian Luna replacement, and got sent to the shithouse. Sorry for language. Got sent to the, to the proverbial, and only saw 15 minutes for the entire season. 3 appearances. Why was he signed? Why was Sabasa Endo signed if Sabasa Endo was a mid-season signing as well? Was it to fill squad requirements? Was it quotas? Was it even PK deciding on the transfers? What is going on here? Because Ante, I was going to throw to you and segue to it, because I know you've got some thoughts about the foreign recruitment. But what is going on here?
They don't run enough.
Yeah.
They don't run enough. Quite simply, they don't run enough. So PK doesn't rate them. They don't run enough. That's it. They're too slow.
Then why are they signed?
No, they're not fit enough. This, that. But he's not making the decisions on who signs and who goes. They're essentially the offcuts of CFG, and that's what Melbourne City get.
I'm not on it. You got to bring that up. I'm upset. I'm so upset. I don't know what to say.
Hey, shout out Alan Riley. He says we spent nearly an hour on the first segment. Hey, mate, it's got to be under 60 minutes.
We've still got the Socceroos and Luka Modric's performance this morning to go on. Like, we've got another 3 hours minimum on this. Like,
Cooked says Tilio 100% needs to get out. City ain't using him right. Joe, I just want to kind of ask you based on City. So
we're talking about youngsters at City, and I have a point I want to make now that I've calmed down, because I think we found that Ante's trigger is like midfield dysfunction in the A-Liga. Mine is media bullshit in the A-Liga. But
one second. Can I just ask quickly, just on that, before you come to City youngsters? My understanding of Melbourne City's kind of plan is to get some of the best youngsters in Australia, bring them into Melbourne City, and then the idea is in I don't know, sell them on to Europe or whatever. Right? We're seeing Callum Talbot has just signed from Sydney FC. We've seen it previously, whether it be Marco Tilio or someone like that. I'm watching last night. The starting 11, the only young player was Metcalf and Glover. He's the goalkeeper.
I was actually saying this to the boys before the game. Griffith's playing ahead of Gamulka, while Here Come the Future plays before the game. Like,
yeah,
come on, guys.
I think I thought it was symbolic. It was incredibly symbolic, and it was sad that as we were watching this game, Melbourne City, their 3rd grand final in a row, we're going to go back to back, banging their heads against a brick wall, no way through. Sitting on the bench is Stefan Kolakovsky, who played a significant role in winning them the grand final when they had players missing the year prior. And I was looking, I knew he wasn't going to come on at that point. I knew that City were going to roll with the front 3, and if they want to roll with that, that's fine. That's their decision. But I thought it was, so sadly symbolic. Like, here's Stefan Kolakovsky, who, out of any player at Melbourne City, probably gave them the closest sort of thing they've ever had to an identity. He grew up a Melbourne Heart fan. He joined the academy. He came up through the ranks, started playing for the senior team, significant connection with the fans, helps them win a grand final. And here he is sitting on the bench, unused in a grand final. Reports saying that he's on the way out, which has to be related to playing time. And I thought it was just the ultimate thing. I looked down at the bench. he wasn't even sitting on one of the actual seats. He had to make do with a Bunnings disposable chair, and I'm just watching that. And I'm like,
brutal.
It felt brutal, especially with the knowledge that reports are that this is his last game in a Melbourne City shirt, a shirt that he grew up wanting to pull on and wanting to play in. It felt like, for all the good vibes of Western United, that felt brutal. Yeah. Just knowing that.
Let's also, speaking of Melbourne City's kids, it's also bringing in players to that academy. It's also notable that one of the most technically adept players to come through that youth team setup is no longer at Melbourne City and playing quite well somewhere else in Bernardo Oliveira. Like, these are PMP players, man. So, like, you think about a Max Caputo, Rafael Borges, even a Lesiotis coming back to Melbourne City because he's PK's boy. Like, they are a PMP team, so they're going to value certain players. And so whenever I hear talk about who's got raps at Melbourne City, I arguably feel it with a pinch of salt, because those eye tests are sus.
The Homer legend said, "Be right back, just going for my nudie run." He promised he would do it if we stayed under 60, and 56 minutes on the clock. I'm going to say thank you to all of you. We're definitely not wrapping up at all. But look, we had some questions also come in earlier in the show. Hey McFly via Twitter, how did you guys rate the pre-game entertainment out of 10? I personally
already got my answer.
I'd give it a 3.
I couldn't hear it. Like, it felt like the audio was like geared up for the live TV. I could barely hear it.
Maybe you couldn't hear it because she forgot like 20 words during the song at one stage. She just went, oh man, like just lip sync that thing.
Did one of them say Melbourne United?
Yes, they said make some noise, Melbourne United, and I don't know.
So,
I don't know how far away the basketball
they trying?
Team is.
Like, yeah, did
Hello,
they get confused?
Springton.
Debano out of 10 pre-match entertainment.
You know me, guys. I'm a sucker for pyro. I'm a sucker for glitz and glam and spectacles. I was joking in the box with everyone saying Gil McLaughlin and Eddie Maguire are looking at that right now and going, why don't we have the night grand final this year as well? The AFL looking at the A-League and going, we want it. We need that. The same as Joey. I couldn't hear anything. Like, all I heard was just a lot of banging and a lot of bass. And then had Ante in the front row doing his best dancing Doover impersonation for the entire time. But in terms of it, look, the fireworks were cool. I love fireworks. I love lights. So that was fine. But I need to be able to hear it, man. Well, how can I rate it if I can't even hear it? It's like using an Ante Milicic thing,
It's not about enjoying it in the present. These moves are going to look real nice in the future. So that's... In about 3 months, you'll probably come and be like, oh, that was actually really great. So I'm still waiting. It's still a bit of time.
The best thing about last night, sorry, Stoll. The best thing about last night, this is peak Melbourne Media Mafia areas. But a shout out to the APL for the catering last night. Mamma mia. We had, sushi. We had mac and cheese croquettes.
Stop.
Why?
No,
Why?
I don't know. You're the fun police now all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I'm going on the record and say I didn't even need any of that because all these vultures took it anyway. But
it was good. It was good food, all right? I'm trying to be positive.
But yeah.
Hey, you want more coverage at A-League games? Get the best buffet in every city. I'll be going every week. I have. And, great season you're having.
Joey, why are you complaining? Joey, why are you complaining when you're the chief person who complained about not having fruit platters at games? You should be the one that's made up with my side. So
I didn't brag about that shit on a podcast, though, did I?
I'm not bragging about it. I'm giving them a shout out, man. Like, I'm just saying.
Well, then call them, you idiot. Don't do it on a national podcast.
Hey, g'day. This is Nick Debano.
I'm gonna call up the catering company and be like, "Hey, that is mac and cheese."
Oh, you
protein."
call up Shannon, you idiot. You call up the person that organised it.
Is this a reference to Ben Smith's idea of a microwave cooking show for Nick Bravado?
Where it cuts out halfway through? Yes.
We'll have
If
that
I
question
could have
later.
with a shoe with a bit of bike.
We'll have
All
that
I'm
question
saying is,
later.
guys, I had fun last night, all right, and the food was damn good, so I'm happy. Okay, positive vibes for a change.
Yeah, that's right. And you know what? Run the Mean says last, and Alan Riley says podcast. So that's good to know. I just speaking of the good vibes last night. Last week, one of the questions that was asked was the crowd. What would be an acceptable crowd? I said 15,000. I thought, geez, they'd be lucky to make that. They got 22, and actually, they looked like there was a big contingent in the Western United active support. It actually looked all right. It looked like they made a lot of noise. I saw a few comments were saying, that they, the top tier wasn't available and that they were giving out, I don't know, tickets at Macca's or something. Don't really know exactly how it all went down. I know I couldn't make it, unfortunately. But just tell me, the atmosphere, the crowd, how was that? Seemed like everyone was having a good time, except Melbourne City.
Can I just say about the giveaways? The giveaways were only about 800 tickets, so it still would have gotten over 20K. So
yeah.
I think end of the day, that is like a win.
But
I mean, there were victory
why?
fans that were. What do you mean? Why?
So why were they struggling all season long, even in some of their biggest games, both these teams, to even crack anywhere near?
Because
like
it's
10,000?
a grand final.
People are theatre goers. Yeah, it's a theatre going event. There were people that I was looking on Instagram, my stories, thinking you've never watched a game of football in your life, and now we're at the A-League Grand Final. So
wait till we get to the All-Star game, all right? Oh, my goodness.
But look, I gotta say, it was a good turnout. I mean, Victory fans will find anything to complain about with that, and they were complaining about the top deck. I think if Victory are in that grand final, of course it sells out. But look, end of the day, for City and Western United, it's a good turnout. You get theatre goers going. It looks good on TV. Can we just stop? Can we move on? It's a good attendance, man.
Yeah, I'll say a colleague of mine, Max Rushton, who clearly had never watched an A-League game all season because he was surprised that ads were put straight after the game.
I thought he was a giant Western United fan, Nick.
Huge,
what do you mean he's never watched?
loves it. In fact, he goes, I don't know what everyone's complaining about the crowd. The crowds look all right. And I was like, yeah, because you watch the grand final, man. Watch when they're playing away to MacArthur at 5 p.m. in Tasmania and tell me if it's going well. Anyway.
Actually brought a decently loud contingent to Tasmania, Western United, but I digress.
Well, it does seem like the active support really does get behind them.
It's just a very small active support, but
which
they're growing.
I respect it. I respect it. Let's just move on quickly. So we've kind of talked. Is there anything else about the game last night that you guys want to add before we move on? Take that silence
let's move on.
We've
already spoken an hour about this.
An hour about one game. Look, if anything sums up the national curriculum, it's an hour on one game.
To be fair, it's an hour on a grand final. It's not like we just busted out with an hour's analysis on MacArthur versus Perth Glory in round 18 or something.
Could do it, though. If the money was right, we could do it.
Wow, what a 63 minutes, guys.
Hey, we know who's listening, by the way.
Look, just wanted to quickly say, where do you guys think the league is at? Right, and let's not go too long on this because we could go forever on this. But it's like that was the worst A-League season of all time. Let's just, who's going to argue? Is anyone going to argue otherwise in terms of it was an absolute disaster in terms of, organization and the TV deal. And I think even the APL will admit that season, forget it. Please, scrap it from the history books. What can be done in the next couple of months? And, we're finishing on a high. The grand final looked nice. It did all right. What can be done in these next months in the off season to get us there? And, let's just ignore the fact of marquees.
Sorry, you know what? Whoever wants to take this one first, you're more than welcome.
Paul Turner says I've just opened Pandora's box.
Is it cliched to just say everything?
Yeah, that's it.
There's multiple philosophical directions that one can approach this question from, regarding, whichever one you adopt will, depends purely on your own mindset. But, to bust out my favorite phrase, multiple things can be true at once. You can need to fix the on-field. You can need to fix the on-field stuff and improve the tactical and technical side of things, and you also can need to improve the marketing. You can need to, figure out what the hell your youth league looks like and what your youth development pathways look like and that sort of stuff. And also, want to improve your social media platform. And I think in a modern footballing league, especially one that spent so long during the Congress civil wars and the like, talking about how they had the knowledge and wherewithal and the cash to, take this league to new heights. I don't think now, coming out of COVID with us, as you said, Nick Stoll, from what I can tell, the APL is just like, listen, we had all of these plans, then Omicron hit, and it just came about delivering an A-League men and an A-League women's season in full, and anything else we accomplished on top of that was gravy. Heading now into an off-season without COVID, I don't think it's unfair to expect the APL and the clubs to fix multiple things, to fix, various different areas that whatever your philosophical bent might want you might want to see fixed. Because let's face it, the marketing department employed by the APL aren't going to fix the tactical and technical side of things. They're going to be doing their own stuff. I can want the marketing department to do their job and the people involved in the technical side of things to do their job. And I don't think there's a conflict in wanting them both to pour their resources in and do that. I think it's a boring answer, I think. But yeah, the answer is everything. Just fix everything. And I guess you can zero in on the nitty-gritty details of the specifics you want fixed in each field from there. And maybe some things don't need fixed. Maybe it's just boost others. But I don't think that's unfair. And I don't think the APL types would disagree that this has been, the most challenging and worst season the A-Leagues have seen. They'd argue that it's because of the pandemic. Well, we're never getting back to pre-COVID, but this is the new normal. Let's fix it, guys. Roll up the sleeves. Let's get to work.
That's a completely rational answer, but I guess the question that has to be asked with that in mind is, what's the quickest fix for these people? And so it usually, despite the philosophical splintering that takes place with these kinds of discussions, one might be more primary or one might represent a bigger picture. But with that, with one of those aspects, specifically, on the pitch, for example, that can't be fixed over an off season.
No,
this is a generational thing that has to be rectified. And
can I offer
the APL
one thing that could be fixed in the off season? And it's from our guy Geraldo. He was scheduling, the most underappreciated because it's boring issue in Oz football. And I know he lives up in Brisbane. I know it's been especially bad for people who live up in Brisbane.
Well, there's some of his complaints.
Stable time slots, later night kickoffs for the half the country behind AEDT, little to no midweek games.
And it's not like we have. It's also not like we have a 20-team league necessitating the need for games to be played at the same time. Like, we can spread these games out over a weekend as well. Like, in an eventuality where you're not playing a game every 2 or 3 days.
Well, I can say that I have spoken to some people at APL land, and they are very keen to have the schedule out sooner rather than later in the off season. Like, I'm talking a coming months. Like, there's a big internal push to have it released as soon as possible and to have it completely set in stone. No conferences, no, here's the first third of the fixture and then we'll figure it out. There's a from what I can tell in the conversations, there is an internal acknowledgement that the topsy-turvy fixture, the games being postponed and rescheduled, the unfriendly time slots, the midweek fixtures did real damage, and lost them a lot of support, even from rusted-on fans. And there is an acknowledgement that they need to fix that. So from a pure scheduling perspective, I can't speak for daylight time because I live in an actual first world state. But everything else, everything else, I think is coming along. I had to do it.
Queensland voted pretty nicely at this election, got to say. Shout out to the inner city of Brisbane. Homer Legend says, would love 2 to 3 p.m. games, to be honest. I mean, look, and he says if it's not too hot, obviously in the middle of summer, that becomes very difficult. I just say quickly on that. I agree. I kind of don't like, I'm out most Friday, Saturday nights. I don't like having games on Friday, Saturday night at 7 p.m. But just on that, for TV, whenever I speak to kind of TV people, they say like Sunday 6 p.m. it might not be a good slot, for attending games, but it's the best slot for viewership figures, and that's a big factor, and that's a tough balance, I'd say.
Can I just add one point about the scheduling thing? Because next season we're going to have the extra time slot with Wellington being back home. So I think that's something that needs to be utilized better. I think I'm not a fan of if you're going to do concurrent kickoffs on a Saturday night, then there's no excuse next year if, to have all the last games of the season played at the same time and, go with what they should have done for the title race this season, or the premiership race, sorry. So I think that, with Wellington there, you can have the early kickoff at, 4 p.m. Wellington time, but it's 2 p.m. in Melbourne or Sydney. And you can do that the same with Perth being back home. And you could stretch it around with Adelaide and Brisbane. There's no excuses for that. I don't think we need to be having concurrent Saturday night kickoffs anymore. I think we have to try and spread this out throughout Friday, 2 or 3 games on a Saturday and 2 on a Sunday even. Oh, look, I don't know if they want to explore, I don't think Monday night or Thursday night football was a hit. I think that, that's more of an other code kind of thing. But if we can move away from midweek fixturing, we saw it didn't really work. Leave midweek fixturing for the Cup. There was that. The one thing I used to love, we're talking start of the FFA Cup, the round of 32 with, the games all going at the one time, the full broadcast going around the grounds. Let's get back to that, please. Let's do that for the Australia Cup for round of 32 and use that as the midweek games. Because then, you give the state league teams their opportunity to get a bit of free air as well, or the NPL sides as well. I think that would probably be, I think for me personally, the one thing I'd want to see in midweek. But if we can avoid having, A-League men's and A-League women's sides playing in midweek, let's try and avoid that at all costs, I reckon.
Good point again from Geraldo. Man, it just doesn't miss, mate. Doesn't Steph for the Warriors. Just Clay for the Warriors. Game 6. Can also have a 7 p.m. New South Wales Vic game followed immediately by an 8 p.m. local one in Brisbane without overlapping. Obviously you might know better than me, Geraldo, but it's actually quite difficult to get to Redleaf or Redcliffe Stadium, whatever it's called, out in Brisbane, right? So it's apparently it's a 40-minute drive from the city centre.
It's not really in Brisbane, from what I can tell.
Yeah,
well, I don't know where Redleaf is, but I mean, sure.
Redleaf is it's a harbour beach in Sydney. But anyway, I'm an ick.
Near Appleton.
I don't know where Appleton
site of the famous title victory, Appleton.
The hell are you talking about, mate? Look, anyway, so I don't know, 8 p.m. and then you got a 40-minute drive back. I wonder if Brisbane Roar is looking back, is looking at scheduling games back in a Brisbane city centre, which would make a lot more sense. And you can one of the big triggers that has been one of the downfall of the A-League in the last 5 years has been the downfall of Brisbane Roar, just becoming an absolute basket case of a team. All right, so let's move on because we're going to finish this in under 2 hours this time. The A-League All-Stars 2, Barcelona Some Stars 3. Guys, you were watching the game at home. None of you were excited by it. I asked you last week. None of you were excited by it. I went to the game, but I just wanted to get your thoughts first. Is anyone eventually excited by it once it actually came to life?
Can I just say one thing about this game? The best thing
Yes.
about this game was if you were listening, by some chance, anyone that was listening to SEN and heard Teo's call of the first goal and him going full, go, 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 go. Like that was the only, other than, Garen Qual had his moment and everything else. That was, that I love that. I didn't watch much of the game at all, just being brutally honest. I was out and I got home at in the 86th minute. But to be fair, in the word of Slaven Bilic, I don't care.
Ante, Alan Riley says you just stop responding. Ante, you always talk about kind of like soulless football kind of killing you the most. And look, this was the most soulless football you can imagine. I was there, and after 2 minutes, I was saying to my mate, like, what the hell is the point of this? This feels ridiculous being there. But look, in the end, man, I was there. Everyone, like, people having a good time. I think a lot of people went home and were like, fuck it. It was enjoyable. Football's enjoyable. Now, should this be a reoccurring thing? That's another question. But a lot of people had fun. And a lot of people probably saw at least around me, just in the seats that I was sitting in, there was a change in reaction from, who the fuck is the A-League? Who the fuck are these guys? Lol their shit. What the fuck? Da-da-da-da. Into, oh my God, this guy's actually good. Oh my God, this guy's actually good. Which is good.
We're a Disney product now. Could you just, on the F-bombs?
Yes, apologies to the Disney Corporation, to the Mickey Mouse, to Minnie Mouse, to Gopher, to the Simba, to Rafiki,
and Tron.
to Tron, to Princess Jasmine, to all the royalty in the Disney family. I apologize for my problem. But technically, I was quoting the people around me. I was not saying such things. But look, I'll just say, like, it was 70,000 people for a football game. At least that makes the state government and all these sponsors and all these people think, there's some money in football. Does it translate to what we need it to translate to? Probably not. Is it a money grabbing exercise? Probably. Ante, go.
Okay, I'm only going to say two things. One, I didn't watch the game because I have dignity. Two, this is an exhibition game. Yeah. So anything that you are trying to please, this is an exhibition game for a cash-strapped club in Barcelona who are trying to monetize everything. Everything. Like, they've even sold the stadium rights. It is no longer Camp Nou. It is Spotify Camp Nou.
Brought to you by Joe Rogan.
Exactly. Let's not devote too much thought to this.
Yeah, my point.
Soccer Twitter, you've. Oh, sorry. Let me just. Soccer Twitter, you've embarrassed yourself this week. You've embarrassed yourself.
Yeah, you got to elaborate. You got to elaborate on that.
No, like
I said. Joey, go.
Well, yeah, I'll pick up. I'll say I watched the game. I'll admit, but I'd also join Ante and just it's not that deep, bro. And we're talking about philosophical directions to approach things and that. I enjoyed watching it. And you know why I enjoyed watching it? Because I didn't watch it as a football match. I watched it as a football-themed pantomime that gave me the opportunity to shitpost on the TNC account in Spanish whilst I got some other work done in the background. Really, I don't think it was that deep. I genuinely don't.
Just talk about enjoying it for what it is. I was genuinely saying that why doesn't the goalkeeper come up on every single corner for both teams? That would be so much fun.
That would have been that would have been fun.
Brought the goalie out.
We could have played basketball. We could have done shirts v skins. It could have. Let's go full panto.
Yeah, no, but I'm genuinely serious, right? Especially the first half was like, man, this is a big waste of time, right? And you were thinking, let's have some fun with it. Now, the best thing that happened,
face it, though, that would never happen though, because Barcelona were just out here to cash a check.
Yeah, but then bring the keeper up anyway. It doesn't matter.
Well, no, they're not going to do anything special. They're just
I'm not saying them. I'm saying us. Let's go nuts. Yeah, but Debano, go.
Was this the A-League's version of Rocky Balboa versus Thunderlips in Rocky 3, for those who have seen it? Like the exhibition fight with Rocky going in this is an exhibition bout as Barcelona, and then Thunderlips throws him across the ring, and that's when Renato Piscopo scores and Adama Traore gives him the lead. They're like, okay, you want to play dirty? And then it just becomes chaos, and they have a great photo at the end of it, which is a photo that I absolutely love. So anyways, yeah, that was just my bit.
I'll just say, from being in the stadium, the intensity with which Barca played was like Umtiti was starting. So that gives you a sense of how fucking chill they were about this, right? This dude has been like a corpse for most of the season, and they brought him out of the freezer, defrosted him a little bit, and then put him on the field. And it was only actually when they went down 2-1 that they clearly were a bit like, we're not going to lose to these guys. They quickly put the intensity up a little bit, 3-2, and then they were like, all right, chill. So that was my kind of reading on the game. But hey, look, a lot of people loved it. I'm a legend. I loved it, but too many Barca Euro snubs. Ooh, I'll take that personally. Stephen Paletti, All-Stars game were brilliant once they equalized in the second half. Before that, it was pretty hit and miss throughout the first. I mean, I guess Ante is nearly dying in the corner there because people are actually analysing this.
Can we talk about the Socceroos, please? I
just think that a lot of people enjoyed it, and that's a good thing.
But yeah, but let's just accept it for what it is. We don't have to now devote too much thought to it. Whatever. Yeah, it was an exhibition game. It was fun, man. Move on.
Let's let the APL do them.
We can bask in a bit of fun. We can enjoy a bit of fun.
Not around me.
I tell you what,
I want to. It was pretty cool seeing the likes of Garing and Nestori nerding out and seeing some of their not starting, seeing them nerd out at some of their favorite players.
Iran Kunda knows ball, man. He's a Dembele truther.
It's pretty cool seeing that. Like whether you want to,
that was wholesome.
Yeah. Can I just tell you, just on speaking of Dembele truther, first time I've ever seen him in person, and it was a relaxed game. That guy, I don't know how anyone defends against him. It's insane watching him in a real person. Can go left or right with you don't know. It's impossible. This dude, I've never seen someone glide as quickly, as easily. I'll go on my left foot. I'll go on my right foot. It is crazy to see, and PSG can enjoy him next season when he signs. All right, just Lockie Flanagan just saying Dwight now has a 0% win record as coach. It would have been funny if people were actually set him up really well, and MacArthur are looking good. Rating out of 10 for Dwight York's outfit. Jeez, he was looking cut. Homer legend. So we talk about City's dull tactics for 30 minutes, but the All-Star game gets 5 minutes because Ante doesn't like it. Welcome to TNC.
No, man, we talked about City's dull tactics in the grand final.
Because it was a serious game. Yeah, this is an unserious game.
Ostensibly ostensibly the biggest game on the Australian football calendar.
Hey, look, speaking of serious, York with a high extra per 90 score though. Comedy. Run the memes. You're asking where the young boy is. There he is. Ivan Stragan wants us to move on. Agreed with Ante. Let's tear apart this Socceroos squad. All right, let's get into it. Socceroos squad, the Cum Dog will not be coming to Qatar. That was kind of the big takeaway. I'll try and bring it up on screen, but Nick Debano, do you want to just give us your kind of initial reaction to the squad?
Graham Arnold's playing safe. Playing with the tried and tested. Because he doesn't. What's the change? He's going with the same players. He's he's gone literally with the same guys. And can I just say, the fact that people were talking about, don't pick Jason Cummings for these games. It's a big game, and you don't want to play someone who hasn't been picked for a big game, and it's risky doing that. But what was Bruno Fornaroli being selected for the Japan game? The precedence has gone out the window.
Incorrect. That was out of necessity. He didn't have Taggart.
Okay, but still, there was that extra sub element to it as well. That playing someone in their first cap in a game like that. You know what I mean? Capping them in a big game like that.
Not really, because quite frankly, Fornaroli is the only striker playing in Australia, outside of now Beckham Ikultadze, and he's already can't lock him up, or can't lock him in. He's done. Like because, but see, this is a I guess the major dynamic coming into this squad or this window. It would be impractical to expect anything different from Graham Arnold, given this is a guy who, one, like has never deviated from that pragmatic norm, and two, even worse, doubled down in times of duress. So to expect anything different and to expect him to select the cum dog, that does not automatically mean that he will not be in Qatar. Hey, Australia could qualify after all.
So I just will say, if you're referring to the headline that I put down the bottom, Socceroos squad, the cum dog will not be coming to Qatar. It's just because these games are in Qatar. That's what I was referring to.
Okay. Now, but like even talking about things like giving Birigidi a cap or giving Brimmer a cap, even though Brimmer is very, very questionable with respect to his capacity at an international level. Let's not go there talking about what he represents as a Johnny Warren medal winner. But Arnold is going to go with what he knows. So,
and you know what? How many coaches do this when they're under pressure? They just go back to their kind of default setting. Jack Pantelios has written, Arnie recently justified his exclusion of the cum dog by saying he's similar to J-Mac. Vince Rigari is not happy.
Vince involved, Arnie involved.
Arnie's eye test is sus, man.
Yeah, what do you guys think about that? It's a very weird comparison.
They're not the same.
Okay, how much difference do you think the cum dog would have made?
Not much.
Not much.
If the last window was anything to go by,
square pegs, round holes.
Personnel is secondary to deployment and implementation. We saw that with Metcalf. We saw that with Jodro. We've seen that with Hrustic. We've seen that with who else have we seen with Irvine as well. Even Stensness in the Japan game, like.
So speaking of how much difference it would make in obviously relation to how much debate it caused, I mean, there was a lot of talk about Birigidi not being included over Redmayne. And again, like Birigidi had a much better season than Redmayne and probably on form deserves to be there. But third choice goalkeeper,
third choice keeper, man.
Yeah.
Aspetta, man. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Like the third choice goalkeeper is basically just vibes merchant. And
whipping in crosses for the warm-up.
Yeah, and like this is just basically.
So Ryan Scott should actually get the gig, right? Ryan Scott should be our third choice keeper. I feel like
the premier vibes, but he's the premier vibes merchant in the A-League men competition. So, but yeah, like I don't like. Yeah, Vukovic and Redmayne. It's basically they're familiar with the setup. They are, I assume. They are 100% fine with knowing they are not going to see a single minute of any of these games. They're comfortable in the system. Arnie and goalkeeper coach John Crawley are comfortable with them. Everybody in that room gets along. The vibes are fine. Like I think that's neither here nor there. Like if you're going to be calling up Birigidi or insert any keeper here and breaking up that triumvirate, you're calling up Birigidi because he's going to be starting over Matt Ryan. So and that's never going to happen. So like it's unfortunate for Mark Birigidi, that he doesn't get to go into camp or anything like that, and it probably doesn't help his confidence. But like that's ostensibly the rationale behind that. And like of all the things that we can talk about the Socceroos side, selection, deployment. The selection of the third choice goalkeeper should be very low on the priority list, as much as it grates at Central Coast Mariners fans.
Well, I think a lot of people were quite critical of it. I just thought it was while I agreed with, I would have gone with Birigidi over Redmayne if I'm choosing who has been the better goalkeeper in the last 6 months. I just
Yeah.
thought, like I
But
said,
that's not what the
third
third choice goalkeeper is about. And I'm just gonna. It's annoying because Ante has stolen my exact points with this entire squad. Like, I'm not like you can be disappointed looking at this squad for certain players who were selected and who didn't. But I don't think you could be surprised. Like, having taken into account this entire qualifying campaign, I know you're about to trigger Nick Debano, so I'll make this point first. Having watched, I don't know how you could watch this entire campaign, seeing how everything's gone out, and be surprised that the boat has not been pushed out for these games. It was always like I posted in the aftermath the Nate Diaz gif. I'm not surprised, mother, Disney censorship. Like, it's just the way this was the squad we were always going to get. Like,
you keep making pauses, so I keep thinking there's an opportunity to jump in. Paul Turner, Nick Debano, based on Qual's performances against Barca, he should have been picked more minutes than Volpato. It's true, did get more minutes than Volpato. What has Volpato done a dangerous run against Barcelona? No, Volpato in the mud. Go on.
Can I just say, I'll put it bluntly. I mean, no, where, I was joking with you guys after the All-Stars game saying we're going to get some take out there about Garang Qual should be picked for the Socceroos based off half an hour in an exhibition match, a goddamn freaking exhibition match. Oh my God, if we're going to pick an exhibition, side of players who dominated those games, why isn't Connor Payne playing for the Socceroos, considering Brendan Rodgers thought he was the next big thing after that victory friendly back in 2013? Seriously, guys. But hey, just one last thing to nip it in the bud here. Yeah. I think now it's time, considering that Optus interview that Christian Volpato did with Adriano Del Monte, Volpato's interest is with sticking around with Italy right now. And talking about taking things that are on the record, just saying, it looks like he's going for the jugular with trying to play for the Italian national team. And good luck to him. Respect the decision. Go for your life. He's got great players in around him. Maradona, who's else playing music? He's got
Andy
great
City's
players.
Instagram stories.
He's got, he's got an agent who will help him get to, who has obviously all the contacts in the world. He's in a great youth academy at Roma. Let's now leave it because we know where his eggs are. And he said, for now, that's where I'm focusing, but things might change. My career's all ahead of me. So please, I'm sick of being triggered on this show. I am sick and tired of having to justify my fact that I'm not out to bloody destroy this kid at all. I want to see him succeed. I had 1 point and everyone takes it completely out of context and I am sick of it. So please, that's it. I don't want to hear any more about it. Unless there's a big U-turn and he gets selected. That's it. No more. Buster. Done.
You made a good point about not selecting Qual, but Luke Chill via YouTube made a good counterpoint. Yeah, but vibes. Lazar11 talking about the eye test across Australian management in general at the moment is pretty bad, at the pro level at least. Yeah, it does seem a bit of a recurring theme across a lot of the things we discuss. Hiraldo says, for real, what is Arnie likely to do with the midfield? Not necessarily what he should do with Moy and Rogic back. Back to what worked for a while in January or more dysfunction. Thoughts?
I'm thinking, I'm not sure if he plays both Rustic and Rogic, but I'm ultimately, I'm very intrigued to see if Taggart backs up after not playing 90 minutes since he's come back from his meniscus injury. So, another thing, what happens when he isn't on the pitch? We have Jamie McLaren, who is not an international level striker. He's not good enough. He's not smart enough. He's not adaptable enough. He's good in front of goal. He's fast. Loves the channel run, but yeah, he's not for international level. I would even argue that Mitchell Duke is more of an outlet and more let's say, of an impact on the pitch than a Jamie McLaren, and even then, it's a very low bar. Like, it's a very, very different team when Taggart isn't on the pitch. But even then, like, how we've utilized him to this point has been very, has been suboptimal. But whether that now changes now, with 2 playoff games, it's probably not going to happen.
But Ante, what do you think about the midfield composition? Who do you think?
It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Like,
I mean,
Arnie's likely going to play Irvine, Hrustic, as 2 midfielders in his 4-2-2-2, and like it's not going to suit either of them.
Debano, just so you don't feel too bad, Paul Turner says, FYI, Nick, I wasn't being serious, just putting it out there. Yeah, I think we all...
No, it's all good.
It's all
good. It's all good.
But, to be fair...
tired, Paul. I'm tired now.
We do like to get honest criticism, and Laurie Haresh says maybe Nick needs more Vol patience, which is a good point, So well done, Laurie, fellow ESPN colleague there. So another one from Geraldo. Still don't put us more than a 30% chance to win both games, but Peru's right side struggling for fitness and Taggart back and scoring helps a bit. Anyone put us above 30?
To be honest, someone actually asked me last night, what do I think is going to happen? Like, honestly, we can't think about Peru until we get past UAE. And there will arguably be different dynamics to that game, or to those 2 games respectively. If we get past UAE, I rather like Australia's chances.
Because Peru is struggling?
No, because they're just as dysfunctional in position as we are. But at least we know that UAE are going to sit in a block against us.
There's also the chance, as Home of the Legend has pointed out, has there been an update on whether Peru is being replaced by Chile? Nick, can you ask the lads? Lads, have you been keeping your ear to the ground in CONMEBOL? Do you know what's going on there? Are we getting in by default?
No.
Doesn't seem that way.
Can I just add one point about UAE, a little subplot in terms of a player that's returning for them from the wilderness? Omar Abdul Rahman, returning after 3 years in the
what a
international
player.
Yeah, well, what a player, guys. He is
but legit, not sarcastic.
He's a genuine. He's a genuine baller. So I that's one player to really keep an eye on, because we've spoken about that game against the UAE is no guarantee winning that.
You got to be good when you make me say, wait, when are the UAE playing? I got to check out this team. That's how good he is. Alan Riley says, Adam Taggart, que jugador. Yep, totally agree with that. Angus Bird, Atkinson or Karacic starting. What's happened with Karacic? Has he been playing in Serie B? Do we know? He's getting minutes.
Believe he has. He's been hit and miss.
He's not at. He's actually been affected by since he got COVID. He hasn't really been able to rediscover form. It's actually been a shame, because I watched him extensively as well.
He played in February and a bit in March, but then it fell off a cliff.
Yeah. He actually played their last game in the playoff against Monza. He got through 90. So it's he is part of Brescia's best 11 in Serie B. That's not that, I don't watch much Serie B as much as I'm an Italian football enough. But when it seems like he's available, Pippo Inzaghi does turn to him. But I think based on current form and fitness levels, I honestly think Nate Atkinson will start.
Nate Atkinson's not the worst option in the world, right?
Oh, no, I'm not saying that's a bad option at all. I'm just saying I think Nate Atkinson will probably start.
Yeah.
Hey, Joey, Antoine Blanchette Kerin. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, but it appears we have a French viewer, French listener. It'll be interesting to start with Dennis Genro against Jordania. Joey, you're a big Denny Genro fan. You keep an eye on him. Any chance he starts? What kind of impact could he have if he does?
Shout out to the Uber Eats, but
yeah. Dennis Genro's utilization throughout this qualifying process, the fact that, yes, he did start against Saudi Arabia, but that only came after the Socceroos were already condemned to a playoff, and in the preceding game, when I personally believe he could have had an impact, even taking into account the limitations that obviously exist. I would not expect Dennis Jonro to start. Now, that's very different from me saying, should Dennis Jonro start? Would I start Dennis Jonro? But I do not expect Dennis Jonro to start. I will be pleasantly surprised if he does.
Antoine has responded. He says, I'm A-Leagues, France, more easier to pronounce. On the subject of pronunciation, by the way, Antoine, please just explain to us how to pronounce it. We'll try and get it right.
Kevin, wouldn't it be Antoine Blanchard Kevin?
Wouldn't it be Kevin?
Here we go.
Kevin.
Antoine, please tell us, kind of try and spell it up. Just quickly.
Speaking of, it's Carl Viet, no?
Carl Viet, yeah. I was just going to bring it up. Someone said pre-show.
Who says differently on this show than that?
Josh Parrish says Carl Vart.
Vart.
No,
it's the VAR.
I'm guilty. Guys, I'm guilty of that as well. Harrow almost tore my head off about 3 times last week because I'm in this habit of I've heard so many different pronunciations and people say, no, it's Vart, no, it's Viet. And then I got in the habit of calling him Vart. I didn't say it to his face, of course, thank God.
He's not Dutch.
But Joey, I spit for a second. I just got into a habit and then Harrow just kept saying Viet. And then I'd say Vart. It's like, no, it wouldn't click. I don't know what goes on in this this brain of mine sometimes, but Jesus Christ, it just didn't stick for some reason. But now it does. Carl Viet. So apologies.
Adelaide United coach Carl van der Vaart.
Right, maybe that's how he got the job. We love Dutch coaches. Just quickly, guys. I'm just kind of, it's an hour 41 of the podcast. We're going to move on to your questions next month. I'm just feeling a bit of a low energy coming through, and I just want to give you a bit of a motivation.
By all means, enjoy it, but enjoy it by being fucking disciplined here.
All right, so just keep that in mind.
Just making it more difficult for Josh to splice in audio during the podcast.
Josh, we played some audio. I'll send it to you. It's a 4-second clip. You'll chop it up beautifully. Quickly, last question.
141.30 timestamp.
It comes from Ben Smith. Do you think the clamor on social media for Jake Brimmer's inclusion in the Socceroos squad was a direct reaction to him winning the Johnny Warren medal? I hadn't seen anyone throw his name around for the national team until after he won the award. I know Ivan Stragan, who watches this show a lot, he's a big Jake Brimmer fan, and he's kind of talked about it in the past. But yeah, what do you guys think about Jake Brimmer winning the award and his non-inclusion? Is that controversial for the Socceroos? Ante, go.
Continuation of Sassai test.
All right. In what respect?
Can I just say, Ante, be careful because someone will mute you again if you say too much about Jake Brimmer not making the Socceroos squad.
Thanks, man. You'd understand. I did. Who in that midfield drops out for Jake Brimmer? Who's Jake Brimmer better than in that midfield?
And there we go. You have your silence, and hence the answer.
Well, there's your silence, guys.
Good point here from Alan Riley, who just says podcast. Also, Alan Riley, another one. He's talking about how to pronounce Carl Viet. He says human handbrake might be easier as much as I rate Carl. Look,
I have a question. Simon Hill is the darling of the internet. Everybody loves him. He's the savior of Australian football. He pronounces all of these words the exact same way that I do. How come people don't rock up in his replies after every A-League game saying, like,
Joe, you don't have that juice, bro.
Joey,
you just don't have it, man. You just got to, sometimes you just have to accept things in life.
Joey, do I need to grow a man bun?
I was just about to say, Joey, start tying your hair up in a man bun and maybe you won't.
I'm not allowed to, like Harper took the piss out of him about that at the Victory in Business lunch. So I'm assuming he's fine with man bun slander. I'm trying to grow it long. I'm trying to grow it long. Get the pigtails back.
Hey, real quick, I feel like we're low on energy, so maybe this isn't the day to do it.
I'm waiting for our toxicity discussion.
Well, I was just going to get into this. Soccer Twitter and toxicity.
I thought we were talking about System of a Down. What's Soccer Twitter? System of a Down. Hey.
We can leave this. Mario from Doncaster did suggest it, but we can.
I'm happy to touch on it in one way.
Okay, go.
Supporting the NPL, supporting the A-League doesn't have to be an adversarial contest.
Correct.
You can love both. You can watch both. Nobody
and European football, for that matter.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of attention of like, oh, how dare people get up and go to, I don't know, Fed Square to watch Liverpool and Madrid, and they don't ever come to Melbourne City. Yeah. Like, shut up.
Like Melbourne City is supposed to mean anything more than Liverpool, in relation to that. But look, Joey's right.
Like what you like, watch what you like. And if you want people to watch what you like, try to make them fall in love with it. Don't try to demand that they love it. Take them to a game, show them some great clips, show them some great football, show them why you love it.
Don't shame them. You can't shame anyone into like loving something. Essentially,
it's so obnoxious. It's so obnoxious. Of like, I don't know. I just find the commentary about like the A-League, like there's like a weird like kind of double-ended way of like they shit on NPL and how dare like South Melbourne ever say anything against us or whatever, and then at the same time they're like these European clubs da 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 da. I don't know.
To be honest, look. I will never ever support an A-League club. Like that just won't happen, and I will never ever have an emotional one. But
you support a club.
Let's not forget why the A-Leagues exist to begin with. Yeah. Like I'm never getting over that. Like I'll be honest, I'm never getting over that. But hopefully, I do. Not that I won't get over that. I won't forget that. Hopefully,
and
the game
should you?
I do want the game to progress ultimately, but I'm not now going to support a Melbourne Victory or a Melbourne City like just
because they're there, just because
that
to me was the biggest problem with the inception was like just for me living in Sydney, it's like, oh, you're a Sydney FC fan? It's like, well, why? They just existed one day.
But we're now almost 2 decades in, and the idea that supporting Australian football is almost exclusive to supporting the A-League still exists. But at the same time though, I feel this was something that was raised today in the chat. It's a good point. A South Melbourne, for example, is not representative of people at NPL. Considering this is the most aspirational club of all the traditional clubs. Come on, guys. Anyway, I'm not going.
I'll say the same thing. Like I don't support an A-League's club, but I don't support an NPL club. I support Carlisle United because that's where my mum is from.
Mum,
like that.
I mean, come on, it was a tap in, George Blackwood would have scored.
It's wholesome, man. It's wholesome. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say, veering towards the danger end of this conversation, I do think it would be helpful if the conversation surrounding supporting football in Australia wasn't framed around the A-Leagues. I think that probably gets back to the structural makeup of Australian football, that there is a disconnect, there is a chasm, there is an interconnectivity there. So it kind of does turn into you support one or the other because we haven't we have created these barriers and this separation. So it inherently turns into that, which I think is a shame. Don't think I'm going to be surprising anybody by saying that, I would love one day to have, see this country moving towards a system of an interconnected pyramid and promotion and relegation. And then maybe that is when the conversation truly shifts. It's when we have, you're supporting your local side, and it might never happen. I live close to my junior club, Doncaster Rovers. They're never going to get promoted to the A-League, even if they do. We do open up the pyramid, but you can sort of see how supporting them could trickle all the way through to Australian football. So that's the controversial bit. But yeah, if you want people to fall in love with it, or you love with, tell them why you love it, share with them why you love it, bring them on board, and you attract more flies with honey.
That's right. A Homer Legend via YouTube says, I honestly couldn't care if the A-League was blah, blah, 214th ranked league in the world. I'd still love it so much more than any A-League. Good for you, man. Love what you love. People are saying...
That's the biggest thing. Fucking love what you love.
Yeah.
That's most important. Fuck what other people think.
Like what you like. Don't let Danny Townsend shove the A-League down your throat. E.g., if you're a Heidelberg fan, go support Heidelberg. Yes, totally agree. And, I just say on this is like, I don't know about you guys, but I grew up in an era where it was rare if you were a football fan. And if you met other football fans, you were just excited that someone liked football. You didn't get, who do you like? Boca Juniors? Who do you like? Manchester United? Who do you like? I don't know, Colo-Colo? Who do you like? Sydney Olympic? Whatever. You were just, thank God, I can talk to someone about this game.
There were like max 10 people in my year level who like soccer. Like,
that's what I mean,
max
right?
10.
So
that's why you used to love going to play junior football on the weekend. Go to training twice a week. Back. I'm not sure what age level the rest of you. There was sort of like a transition when I was playing junior football, where for like under sixes up, everyone would rock up wearing football shirts to training, and at some point everybody goes sort of like through a transition and they're like wearing training gear and all that instead. But that was great. Like, you used to rock up and you'd be wearing your England shirt, and some mate would have a Juventus shirt, and somebody else would have a Liverpool shirt. And that's why you fall in love with this game. You go to junior football and you hang out with friends and you talk shit, and there's no back in the in the under sevens, I wasn't arguing with my mate wearing a Juventus shirt about why the Premier League is so much better than Serie A or anything like that. Don't take the cheap bait. It wasn't intended as bait, but like, that's the thing. Like, we just like football, and we played football, and we talked football.
I'll just quickly say as well. Go to Barno, please.
I was just going to say, I argue with anyone if I see them in a Juventus shirt. Like, if I see them in a Juventus shirt. No, well, yeah, that's all I want to say.
Well, yeah, and I just say as well, like, I got a mate of mine. He's Chilean, massive Colo-Colo fan.
R.I.P. to Colo-Colo after they got eliminated from the Copa Libertadores this week.
Shout out Lazo if you're listening. But he'll listen to the radio like when he's at work, and he'll be yelling at the radio like "Concha tu madre" every time. Like, he just hears that they haven't scored or they've missed whatever, right? It would be insane for me to go to him and be like, "You're a Chilean football snob. Why don't you support Western Sydney like this?" Like, it actually would be the most insane shit, and he should slap me in my face if I say that. Now, he just happens to be a giant Sydney FC fan who also loves to throw conspiracy theories around. But this guy would support, if I put any team in front of him, he'd find a way to get behind it because he loves football. And I think that, to me, is like the ideal fan. He'll support his daughter's game like it's the World Cup final, and the same with Colo-Colo and everything else. Debano, quickly.
Yeah, I guess it was just to relay that point. I mean, don't tell people how to consume their sport and who to support. People want free choice. If you don't want to support an A-League team, but you just want to watch football, and you support a team in Europe, and you want to get up at 5 a.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning and get up and watch, Liverpool, or you want to get up and watch Milan, or you want to get up and watch Bayern Munich, or whoever it might be, any team around the world. That is your personal choice. I don't want to be told by anybody. It's like if I turned around as the same thing, like turned around to Ante and said, stop supporting Hajduk. You should be supporting Western United instead. Or going to Joey and saying, you know what, stuff Carlisle United. You should be a Melbourne City fan instead. Like, that's the level of it. Because we make that decision because we're passionate about it. There's a tie to it. We all go for a team for a reason. It's not just because we picked them. We have a tie to that. There's an emotional tie to that. And I don't want to have my, the team that I support that I'm so passionate about, that sense of it sort of, trying to think of the right word in my, that insulted, I feel like I'm insulted if someone said to me, like, why do you get up at 5 a.m. to watch Milan? And why aren't you going for an A-League team? Or why this, why that? I do that because I love AC Milan and I love that team and I support, and I've been going for them my entire life. It's like someone, again, turning around to me and saying, why do you support Collingwood? I was born into a Collingwood family. I'm not going to support someone else. I'm definitely not that. But the thing is, hey. Oh, that was a good win today. But it's just the main thing is, guys, like, we like the whole thing about that, like just being told how to do something is what's going to get more people disenfranchised. No one wants to be told how to do things. No one wants to be told who to support. If you don't want to freaking support an A-League team, so be it. Live with it. Don't shove it down our throats, because the more you shove it and you push it, it's like you're trying to force feed a baby with, here comes the airplane. If the baby doesn't want it, you can't put it in the mouth. So just leave it. You can't make the kid eat. So leave it. Sorry, it's a bad analogy, but that's what I meant.
What did a baby
Ivan Stragan rates it. He says, round of applause, Nick. Or maybe he's saying it to me, saying, what a great host up there, for sure.
Wow, what a great host.
Luke Chill says, I think there is more animosity towards Eurosnobs than NPL because people just want football here to thrive. We want football here to thrive, okay? Obviously, right? Like, who does it? Who's going, you know what? I love Manchester United and I hope the A-League and Australian football sucks forever. No one wants that. And actually, these are the fans who you need to get on board. Look, quickly.
I just want to answer the Homer Legends question as well.
Go on.
Like, I'm not going to speak for it. No, because I support Carlisle. Like, I imagine Ante might, but that's
look,
just
if
his team
if Melbourne Croatia get, are now part of this national second division side, then yeah, I'll support Melbourne Croatia. But otherwise, forget it.
Like, that's what I'm trying to say. I don't ideologically support league or team. Like, I enjoy everything.
Weird behavior, man.
Like, I enjoy everying.
Toro says, Nick getting overexcited. Could someone turn the microwave on, please? Internet has been stable.
Mate, I gave the family the rundown. Like, between these hours, the microwave stays off. And talking about the microwave, guys, can we get this show wrapped up? Because I've got a plate of pasta waiting for me downstairs. I need to use said microwave for, and I am starving.
No, what we really need to do is we need to frame it around somebody is telling Manuel Pucciarelli which team to support. Then we can really set Nick off.
Can we?
Oh, that's at 11 o'clock. Sweet.
Paul Turner says, Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it.
The zero.
I was thinking, it might be touch and go. Keep going, but
the zero overtaking Grand Prix. Like, there was like one overtake last year, wasn't there?
Check out Game 7 on ESPN tomorrow. All right, ESPN.
Oh yeah. Let's go Heat. Let's go Heat.
Paul Turner, can we get the Jukic Modric love affair on air started, please? Ante, the floor is yours.
All right, I'm not gonna go on too long, but he's 36. Like the meme, like, you're 36. He shouldn't, like, a player like 36 shouldn't be able to decide games at this level at that stage of his career. That's just like, that just doesn't happen anymore. And how great it is, Nick, when you know what, I'm not going to go there.
No, I know what you're going to say.
I just know. Nah. Look, all I'm going to say, ¿Dónde está CR7? CR7, ¿dónde está? Because Real Madrid have absolutely, survived Cristiano Ronaldo. And he needed them more than they needed him. And I think that has been, like, absolutely proved over the past 4 years. Modric, he's absolutely declined, compared to what he was 4 years ago or 5 years ago. Like, because honestly, I know you disagree with this, Nick, but between 2016 and 2018, he was the best footballer in the world. and it wasn't even like, not to say that it wasn't close, but his impact on games was unprecedented.
I agree. It wasn't close.
Modric was the best footballer in the world between 2016 and 2018. But why I make this point is like, he's in his own relative decline, but he's still better than 95% of midfielders that exist today. He can impact games in ways that other midfielders simply cannot. He's a one of one, and man, outside of him being Croatian and me being very proud of that fact that we have such a revolutionary footballer in the history of football's tactical evolution and what he represents in the midst of that. Like, just as a football lover, like there isn't a footballer outside of Iniesta that has provided such joy watching football. Like, he and Iniesta transformed how I viewed football. It's crazy. He's just the best.
I agree with all that except for Modric is better than Messi in those.
It should be a multiple Ballon d'Or winner, by the way.
Actually, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that. I would like it if one year they were like, "Look, none of you were good enough. We're not giving one out," and then other years they're like, if you reach a threshold."
2017, Ronaldo shouldn't have won that Ballon d'Or. That should have been Modric. He was the best player in the world at that point.
I'm sure Messi was, but that's all right.
He'll never win a Champions League again, Nick. How does that feel?
Hey guys, if you want this show to go for another hour, me and Ante are just going to debate Messi v Modric, the 2010s. Look, I think we'll leave it there. But someone was just asking, Luke Chill was asking on YouTube, is there an off-season plan for TNC? Yes, there is. So next week, obviously, we'll be back Sunday, I presume. I'm going to be in Vietnam. I'll probably try and join potentially from Ho Chi Minh City. But we'll talk Socceroos next week, and there will be off-season episodes. Joey, you can probably talk more to this, but we'll be able to answer a lot more of your questions, because one of the best things about this show, and I really do mean this, is all the questions that you guys send in. We did a call out about an hour before the show. We had 15 questions that we could go real in-depth on. How do you get more people to the MPL? Socceroos squad discussions, A-League discussions. There's so much there that we could really unpack, and I would love to do that throughout the offseason, Joe.
It's real cool.
Yeah, one of the best things about this move to ESPN is that ESPN are backing us to just be us, and they are also backing us to do shows and follow our noses, so to speak. So not only is there scope throughout the off season for us to do the weekly shows on Sunday, but there's also scope for special episodes. If say if there's a midweek Socceroos game that we desperately need to cover, or a midweek Matildas game, or there's an emergency pod surrounding, I don't know, national second divisions announced or something like that, we have the scope to do emergency pods. We have the scope to do specials. We've talked about maybe doing some sort of off-season draft and FIFA tournament. So we have the potential to do.
Come to Melbourne, Nick.
Come to Melbourne, Nick.
I heard the word draft.
We got some stuff in the works.
We got some fun stuff. And we also even have the stuff, there's scope, if Ante does a big one-on-one conversation with someone, that might become a bonus podcast. If I do a big one-on-one conversation with somebody, that might, oh, for God's sake, that might appear in your podcast feed. So there's a whole bunch of really cool stuff that we can do in the off season. We are definitely not disappearing in the off season. I swear to God, I had another point I wanted to make, but TNC will continue to post during the off season. We're still here. We're still going to be loose. We're still going to do takes, and ESPN are backing us to do that, so you don't need to worry.
Hey, shout out Run the Memes before I say goodbye to you all. Ante depressed for most TNC episodes, but absolutely glows when talking about Modric. Here's what we need to do. We need to start the show talking about Modric, get Ante in a really good mood, and then maybe it can sustain itself across 2 hours. Guys, we'll probably leave it go. Yeah.
You know what the beauty is? We've got Nations League starting, so we actually can do that. So we'll make sure we'll get Ante speaking about Croatia to start it.
Oh my God! No. These are depressed areas. Because there we talk all right. We might have to go into those areas.
I think there is
This
scope
will be therapy.
on. There is scope. Our episode
Favorite draft
on
film.
our episode
Sorry,
on June.
Ante is just laughing at the comment. Samuel has written in favorite draft album, Joey. That's comment of the night. Go on, Joey.
Say, it's been ruined. No, it's, Sunday, 12th of June episode. We'll lead off an hour off the top, examining England's win over Italy.
At the Molyneux. At the empty Molyneux, by the way.
So you'll be able to
English fans-
hear. You'll be able to
English
hear
fans,
the
they
Italians.
can't even invade a pitch without assaulting a player, man. Like, come on, sort your boys out.
You know what'll be even funnier? The team that didn't even make the World Cup is still going to beat England on their home deck again. And it's going to feel great.
Almost as good as qualifying for the World Cup, Nick.
Shout out to
Thank
everyone
you.
who listened. We're going to say bye. We'll see you next week. Joey, Ante, Nick, it's been a pleasure. See you next time on TNC.
Wow, what a season.